Good evening, everyone, or good afternoon or morning, depending on what part of the world you're in. This is Roaming Prepper Channel. Thank you once again for joining me on one of my broadcasts. Um, I will tell you, for those of you new, I'm on my own journey, as is everyone. So, much like a lot of the other creators in the circles I keep, we don't all know everything. You get a lot of people who say, well, if you don't know this, you're not a prepper. If you don't do that, you're not a prepper. If you can't do whatever, climb up the side of a mountain a certain way, you're not really prepared for anything. I think those people are just arrogant and full of it. Um, Actually, to me, it's quite exhausting because the truth is, everyone's in a different place, everyone's in a different situation. Um, But one of the things I try to do, and again, I'm for those of you who are new to me, I'm a degreed engineer. Engineers aren't people who know everything. What an engineer is someone who's been trained to professionally problem solve issues that come up in business or industry or whatever work we're in, and that's what it is. It's almost like a formal training in troubleshooting. But some of our stuff is massive. Some projects we get involved in could be hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more. Uh, but that doesn't mean we know it all. And I like to question things because if what we're being told doesn't link up with what I'm seeing, we not only should we, but we have an obligation as free people to do that, to question what we're seeing, and not necessarily to create a narrative, but to educate and possibly fill in the gaps for one another so that we can move forward in learning more. And the better informed we are, the more understanding we have of what's going on. Um, I think the more it benefits us because it also not only educates us, it informs us and gives us a direction as to how we do need to prepare depending on where you live. I've said it before, someone who lives in Nebraska probably doesn't have to worry about a hurricane. Houston, up until this year, didn't need a snowstorm, but apparently they got 6 inches this year, but it's rare. Houston folks don't necessarily stress about snowstorms and blizzards. And so understanding what's around you, what can actually affect you, can help guide you to get the most bang for your dollar, to waste the least amount of time and energy. So, on that topic, I went down this rabbit hole. And I'm going to take you with me. I'm going to try and keep this not too crazy long. Um, what is fifth generation warfare? Since the beginning of the year, I'm filming this at the beginning of February of 2025. Since New Year's morning, like not even 7 hours into the new year, we had a terror attack in New Orleans, a bombing kind of in Las Vegas. Then Los Angeles caught fire. Some people say some of the fires were natural, some of the fires were equipment malfunctions of the electric company, others were arson. But literally, there were fires all around the city, even though some of the fires were moving the opposite direction of the prevailing wind. So that lends a lot of suspicion. But then on top of that, we had a F-35 stall out and crash in Alaska in the last week of the month. A Black Hawk, fully lit in the evening, hit a Learjet, fully lit on its correct approach in a clear moonlit night right over Washington, D.C., and killed a bunch of people. The very next 24 hours, we watched a medical transport nosedive at a phenomenally high rate of speed into the ground in Philadelphia, not only kill everyone aboard, but set fire to a block, and people were fatalities on the ground. And then this morning, I heard that there was a jetliner in Houston that caught fire on the tarmac. Trending on X, what the F is going on? And that's a valid question. And my question is, are we witnessing fifth generation warfare? Because we've all heard it. So what exactly is fifth generation warfare? So I had to look it up, and I'm going to give you the Cliff's Notes version, courtesy of. I went to a few different websites. I also went to AI, and I kind of cross-referenced and said, okay, they're kind of telling me the same thing. So fifth generation warfare is a concept that extends beyond traditional forms of warfare, focusing on non-kinetic methods to achieve strategic goals, characterized by information warfare, cultural subversion, economic warfare, cyber warfare, diplomatic maneuvering, asymmetric warfare, the use of non-state actors. Follow me here. Oh yeah, that's it. Use of non-state actors. So to give you a generic idea, why is it fifth generation? What the hell are like 1 through 4, right? So third generation warfare would be the use of full-scale armies, one country against the other, and using better technology and maneuverability to defeat your enemy. That would be, for example, what we saw in World War II, the Blitzkrieg, or what we saw in the Korean War with the Chinese T-34s trying to just overrun the American units, and then the Americans outmaneuvering the T-34s and destroying them. And they went back and forth. The Korean War was pretty ugly. That would have been third generation warfare. Fourth generation warfare is more along the lines of the Vietnam War, where you may have a major player fighting an insurgency. And even though technically we know that like China or Russia was funding the Viet Cong, you couldn't draw a direct line to it, unlike, say, the Korean War or World War II. So you have both state and non-state players, and then the hearts and minds kind of thing, which you remember from the Vietnam War was a big deal on both sides, trying to win the hearts and minds. Fifth generation takes it a step even further, where you're actually trying to subvert an entire other culture. For example, removing traditional marriage, confusing people about what gender they may be, infusing a large amount of a drug into a country that would cause the country to be disrupted. Now, the British did that to the Chinese in the 1800s with the Opium Wars. Ironically, they controlled Afghanistan at the time, brought all this opium in and basically peddled it on China. And it kept the Chinese stoned in a lot of the big cities for a significant amount of time. So that was almost like an ancient version of what could be a fifth generation war, but it's even more now, because with the cyber world, if you will, that whole online world, essentially you can go and create narratives, you can create false narratives, and you can try to affect the other country's belief system. And I think we've seen that in America, because not 5-10 years ago, it would have been unheard of for someone to basically say it's okay for a biological male to be in a female's restroom. A functional biological male, not a eunuch or something like that. But it's happened. Okay, now regardless of where you stand on the gender topic, no one can question that we've changed a lot, especially in the last 4 years. This has been a really epic change. But then it makes you wonder, well, who's pulling the strings? And that's what fifth generation warfare is about. So if the US were under a 5GW attack, here's what you might observe. And there's some ideas. So information overload or disinformation, an increase in fake news, deepfakes, conspiracy theories that would lead to societal polarization and mistrust in our most sacred institutions. Cyber incidents, frequent and severe cyber attacks on governments, utilities, private work. We've seen that. Remember 2020, they hacked the pipeline, they hacked the DOE. It's been nonstop. Cultural and social divisions, don't even need to get into that. Yes, we have them. Economic instability. So you have other countries manipulating trade, manipulating currency, and to be fair, the US is equally guilty. That also could be considered a fifth generation warfare. Legal and policy chaos, where rapid changes and contradictions in legal frameworks, perhaps due to foreign influence, foreign bribery, or foreign lobbying, keep that in mind, right? Because everybody's trying to wonder where certain people got a bunch of money from, would be part of that. Manipulation of elections or public sentiment, increased surveillance and privacy concerns, community discord, and public health manipulation, if relevant, like during pandemics, misinformation regarding health policies and treatments could lead the public to make bad choices in a health crisis, or create distrust in the medical world. Or the medical people could be compromised and encourage other people to do things. And they trust the doctor, they trust the guy on the TV, and that person is not a good player. I'm trying to watch how I say things, but you guys catch what I'm saying. So these were all symptoms, and again, manipulation of the media, unusual information patterns. So let's go backwards a few years. About what, 8-9 months ago, we literally watched, well, there was a movie came out called Leave the World Behind, and it had planes dropping out of the sky. It had a tanker running aground on a beach in Long Island for no reason. It had communications failing. It had fighting in the cities. The movie Civil War also did. And here we've seen a freighter make an abrupt right turn that made no sense because it lost power, it lost control, suddenly comes back online, and it's too late for the captain to maneuver, and they smack into the bridge in Baltimore, which is the Francis Scott Key Bridge, and they knock it to the ground. The video of the plane crashing into the ground and the man runs away in the movie, well, we just saw Black Hawk in a very clear night, fully lit, in communications with air traffic control. Suddenly they drop off communications and they make a beeline into a transport. Mind you, there were 2 pilots in there. Okay, a lot of people said, well, it was a DEI pilot. It was a female, whatever she was. But she had 500 hours. Okay, that's fine. That's not a lot, but it's not nothing either, if that makes sense. But her instructor was next to her who had thousands of hours. There were 2 competent pilots there. Either one of them could have said, that's wrong, and dropped 100 feet, and there would have been no collision. Also, you had the crew chief in the back looking out the doors of the damn Black Hawk. Surely they saw it. And then 24 hours later, a medical plane, possibly on fire, comes smashing into the ground at almost max speed. They were going 350 knots. That's like 400 miles. That's an insane speed. It didn't crash. It came down like a bullet. It almost looked like a kamikaze. What are we watching? Could that be one of the variables here that they mention in this little investigation? Cyber operations, cyber attacks, hacking, espionage, disinformation, critical infrastructures. Navigation would be a critical infrastructure. That's a common denominator between the Black Hawk crash, the medical plane crash, and the freighter, right? And then you look at all the derailments, like Palestine, Ohio. That was tragic. The mudslides in North Carolina, and the response was garbage. Now, granted, there were mudslides there, 80 years ago, but so it does happen from time to time, every few generations, but the response was garbage. Nobody was ready for it. We really have to ask ourselves, are we witnessing a 5th generation warfare against the West, specifically against the US? Now, another thing they talk about is use of non-state actors. Well, if China or Russia or whatever bad guy you want to point out comes and drops bombs on us, it's pretty obvious who the hell did that. But if, because of a porous border, we have bad actors come into the country and commit acts that cause horrendous harm, not just crime, not just trafficking, I'm talking straight up 9/11 nightmares, who do you blame? What if it's, a white kid from Jersey, or a black kid from Philly, or a Puerto Rican from Detroit? Or you see what I'm saying? Like, what if it's just some immigrant from Honduras? What does he have to do with China? Trying to tie that back. You look at the 2 assassination attempts on President Trump. The second guy who didn't get killed, they knew all about him within 24 hours. It was all over the news. But the kid who was on the rooftop that shot him in the ear, we still don't know where the hell the kid came from. There's no social media. Everything was scrubbed. I had the privilege of going to Dealey Plaza, and I actually made a video of that on my channel. Look at the JFK Museum. And I promise you, I came out with more questions than answers. I might have to go back after I read the release files and go back and see. But there's a lot at play. And unfortunately, I think to some extent the enemies are inside the walls. They're within the gates, and some are outside. So what does this mean for us? Well, depending on how things go with the removal of criminal elements from our country, and keep in mind, now we have the military on the border. That's new. We never had that big a military presence, including Army Reserve and Marines on the border. It's been a long time. Now there's talk that the cartels will start using drones, much like the Ukrainians do, against our people. So, and this morning, the Mexican government announced they would be moving 10,000 of their Guardia, which is their like National Guard, to the border as well. So what's going on? Why all of a sudden are we clearing house? Why all these accidents? Why all these weird incidents? We haven't heard of a plane crash in years, and we have 2 in 24 hours. Why are the Marines on our border? Why is the Army Reserve, not just the National Guard, the Army Reserve is out there? Why are there Chinooks and Ospreys up and down the border? Look up videos of Roma, Texas, and Fronton, Texas, and you'll see online there are Chinooks and everything flying up and down. What is going on? Look at the aviation maps. Drone and private aircraft flying is forbidden in a lot of the border areas. Even if you're licensed, you're a legit pilot, you're taking your Cessna out for a spin to survey a ranch, guess what? You can't fly in those areas. They're going to run you off. What's going on? The terror attacks on New Year's Day. Now, granted, this may sound a little paranoid. It may sound very conspiracy theorish, tinfoil hatty. Fair enough. But we need to start asking ourselves what's going on, and more importantly, why the big response. We knew there'd be a response when Trump won, but this is huge. Why? What's going on? What do they know that we don't? And if anything we take away as a preparedness community is to make sure that we are prepared for this. Sorry. That we are prepared for this, that we have made the best plans we could to get from A to B if we have to hunker down if we have to, and to defend our homes if we have to. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave you with those thoughts, but I just read all of those indicators of 5th gen warfare, and I could safely say over the last at least 6 months, certainly probably the last 2 years or more, you could probably check all those boxes. So stay frosty, be safe, pay attention to patterns. Typically, incidents have some pattern that precedes them. I've referred to them as precursor events. That's a common phrase with engineering where you have a failure of a bridge. There are usually other things indicating something's wrong with the bridge before the bridge comes down. So they refer to it as kind of like a precursor incident. Look for those patterns. Understand your area, understand your risks, understand what is your most likely threat or vector of harm, and then prepare accordingly. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, be good, be safe. God bless all of you, and keep out of trouble. And I will see you on the next video. But pay attention to what's going on. I think it's really going to be an interesting year in 2025. Let's try and stay ahead of the curve as best as we can. Take care, and I'll see you on the next video.